A war you are not fighting, in a region you have never visited, is already messing with your business. Here is exactly how. CRISIL dropped a report on April 12, 2026, and the headline number is this. A prolonged West Asia crisis could push crude oil prices up 23% year-on-year. 23%. Now that alone would sting for most countries. But India is not most countries. We import roughly 85% of our oil. So when crude spikes, we do not just feel it at the petrol pump. We feel it everywhere. And that brings us to the current account deficit, or CAD. Think of it like a household that keeps buying more imported groceries than it earns selling things outside. At some point, you are either borrowing from the neighbors or raiding your savings account. India's CAD was sitting at a manageable 1.5% of GDP. A prolonged conflict? That number climbs to 2% of GDP. That gap does not just disappear. It has to be plugged with foreign investment or by burning through forex reserves. And it does not stop at oil. Fertilizer import costs are climbing too, which flows straight into food prices. The combined hit? Inflation is projected to cross 5%. When your customers are squeezed at the pump and the grocery store, they are not buying cars, not renovating homes, not spending on anything they do not absolutely have to. GDP growth was pegged at a healthy 7.1% for the year. A moderate crisis scenario pulls that to 6.8%. A prolonged conflict drags it to 6.5%. Half a percentage point sounds like rounding error. Until you remember, we're talking about an economy at India's scale, where that translates to hundreds of thousands of crores rupees in lost economic activity. This is not abstract macro noise. This is your raw material cost creeping up, your customers tightening belts, and the rupee under quiet, persistent pressure. So that is the big picture, the what and the why. Next up, we get specific. Who actually wins in this mess? Who takes the hardest hit? And what numbers should you personally be watching? So now that we know the scale of the problem, who actually gets hurt? And who quietly profits? Because not everyone loses in a crisis. Not even close. Let's start with the winners. And yes, there are winners. Domestic oil and gas companies like ONGC and Oil India Limited are practically having a party right now. Global crude is up 23% year-on-year, and their production costs haven't moved nearly as much. That gap? Pure margin expansion. If you hold PSU-heavy mutual funds, that trend line going up on your screen is basically their profit curve. And it matters. Renewable energy players like Adani Green and Tata Power are also quietly benefiting. Not because of oil prices directly, but because every time crude spikes, the government fast-tracks green energy contracts to cut import dependence. Think of it like a petrol price hike finally pushing that reluctant car owner into an EV. The crisis just accelerates what was already coming. Shipping companies with their own vessels are riding elevated freight rates, and IT exporters. Every dollar they earn abroad now converts to more rupees at home thanks to the weaker currency. Now, the losers list. It's longer and it hits closer to home. If your business imports raw materials or machinery, your costs are going up. Full stop. Auto, real estate, consumer retail, restaurants, travel. All of them are already feeling the squeeze as inflation above 5% chips away at household budgets. So here is the real question you need to sit with. Are you positioned on the right side of this shift? Or are you quietly absorbing costs you haven't even fully accounted for yet? That brings us to the final piece. What India's policy response looks like and what it signals for the road ahead. So now you know what's happening and why. The real question is, what do you actually do with that information? Let's start with crude oil. Because as you can see in this trend line, it's been on a relentless climb, up 23% year-on-year. And it's the trigger for almost everything else in this story. Your input costs, your customers' wallets, the rupee's value, even what the government decides to do next. If crude pulls back, India's trade gap narrows and growth can recover toward that 7.1% baseline. If it stays elevated, you're living in a 6.5% growth, 2% current account deficit world for a while. Next, watch the rupee closely. A weaker rupee sounds like an abstract finance problem until you're the one importing raw materials or machinery. Suddenly, that flat global price isn't flat at all in rupee terms. Build a 3 to 5% currency buffer into your procurement planning for the next 2 quarters. Not optional. Then think about your own energy costs. India is actually accelerating renewable capacity right now because of this crisis. Which means, if you run anything energy intensive, rooftop solar or green energy contracts are genuinely worth exploring today, while grid, electricity prices keep creeping up. And on the demand side. Inflation above 5% means your customers are quietly tightening their belts. This is not the moment to slash prices. It's the moment to remind people why what you offer is actually worth it. The businesses that win through this won't be the ones that panicked. They'll be the ones that trim their cost structures, hedge their currency exposure, and spotted the real tailwinds. Renewables, logistics, domestic energy. Plan now, and this becomes an edge. Ignore it, and it becomes a surprise. Follow us for more updates like this. Thanks for watching. And don't forget to follow us on YouTube, Instagram, and X.